won't none! You don't want none!
What's going on, Tar Heel Nation? It is your favorite North Carolinian, Russ, the Tar Heel. And in this huddle, baby, we're going to preview and predict the 2024 ACC Tournament, and I'm going to give you my bracket. Now, it's been an unbelievable season thus far for our Tar Heels, as they're currently 25-6, the outright ACC regular season champs, and a perfect 5-0 record against Duke, State, and Wake. So, let's get into it. First, though, a little bit of background information. The ACC tournament will be held at the Capital One Arena in Washington, D.C. from Tuesday, March 12th through Saturday, March 16th. Now, this will be the 71st ACC tournament and the third time that it will be held in our nation's capital. Now, what I want to do before I get into my personal bracket is I want to encourage the rest of Tar Heel Nation to additionally fill out your own bracket, and the winner will get a couple of Tar Heel Huddle wristbands, and I'm going to throw in something else in there. It's just a little thing, but it'll be worth it. So it'll be on the house, so I want to encourage the rest of Tar Heel Nation to fill out your own bracket. You can either send it to my email address, thetarheelhuddle@gmail.com, or you can obviously drop it down into the comment section. Now, just going over the rules, the scoring system will be as follows, okay? First round equals 1 point. So you get that round right, then you'll get 1 point for your total score, okay? Second round is 2 points. Quarterfinal round, you get that game right, it's going to be 3 points. Semifinal round, 4 points. And the final round will be worth 5 points. The tiebreaker is the total points scored without going over. So, for example, if I pick 150 total points in the ACC championship game, and then you pick 149 points, and the final score round total is 151, then I would win. But even if I win, I'm going to send whoever comes in second some wristbands and something little anyway. But without further ado, baby, let's get into Russ's bracket, man. Now, we're going to start with a 2 p.m. tip of the 12th-seeded Notre Dame Fighting Irish taking on the 13th-seeded Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets on the ACC Network, and all of the round one games will be on the ACC Network. So I don't think I've shied away from telling everybody how much I think Marcus Burton is an absolute hooper. The kid is still averaging 17.3 points per game, and he's going to be a matchup nightmare, whoever he plays against. Not to mention, Notre Dame has already beaten the Jackets twice this year, although they were very, very close basketball games. One was in overtime, and the other one was decided by just 3 points. Despite the butt whipping that the Irish took in Chapel Hill and the L they took in Blacksburg Hill recently, they are playing at a higher level overall than they have all season. So I'm going to take the Irish over the Jackets in a close one. If you hear me kind of like, my words and everything, it's literally 6 in the morning, and I didn't get off of work and get in bed until like almost 1 o'clock. So going off a little bit of sleep, and I got a 16-hour workday coming up, dude. But I digress. So next, we're going to go over the 4:30 tip. It's going to be the number 10 Wolfsack taking on the 15th-seeded Louisville Cards. Now, let me set aside all the loathing and hate for a second, and I want to give an honest assessment of this game. State's been quite the enigma. It's a talented team with the likes of DJ Horn. They have DJ Burns. They've taken leads into the half against Carolina and Duke, but then they always seem to falter and fall apart in the big games. I don't know what it is, man. Luckily for State, this isn't one of them, as Louisville has entered yet another year of completely falling off the edge. It's crazy how far that stinking program's dropped. Horn and Burns are too much for the Cardinals in this one, and State advances to the second round. And the last game of the night is going to be the 11th-seeded Boston College Golden Eagles pitted against the 14th-seeded Miami Hurricanes at 7 p.m. Now, I like this Miami team. Okay, I know that they're on a 9-game losing streak, which is just mind-boggling to me. I am completely and utterly shocked that the Canes have had the season that they have. Norchad O'Meara is an absolute force to be reckoned with. The dude's averaging 17 points per game, 9.9 boards, and he's shooting 55.7% from the floor. Now, Miami has lost to Boston College twice already, by 8 in Boston and 10 in Miami. And Miami is currently on that aforementioned 9-game losing streak. So at this point, it's not even stinking talent, dude. It's a mental thing. And I really, really want to pick the upset here. And I'm going to pull the trigger, dude. Miami gets away from home, and with a new sense of urgency, they beat the Eagles in a close one for our first tournament upset, seeding-wise. And the Canes take down the Boston College Golden Eagles to advance to the second round. And that's going to take us into the second round of the tournament. So we'll start off with the noon tip of the 8th-seeded Virginia Tech Hokies taking on the 9th-seeded Florida State Seminoles. Like many 8-9 games, this one's going to be kind of tough. Both of these teams, they've played twice, and both teams have won on their own floor and lost away. Now, Petula and Cador have both had 20-plus games when they're playing Florida State. So they're not going to have any problems scoring the basketball against FSU's length, and that could very well be the difference. Virginia Tech's ability to score from multiple positions. Now, FSU does have firepower of their own with Darren Green Jr. He scored 26 in his last game. Dude dropped 8 3-balls against the Canes. And then you have Jameer Watkins, which is an absolute stud. And this one kind of is a toss-up game for me, just like obviously a lot of 8-9 games are going to be. Pretty evenly matched teams as far as skill. But I'm going to have to go with the Hokies in this one. They're closer to home. Padula and Couture, they can light it up, bro. And I think the Hokies advance to take on the Heels in the quarterfinals. So mark it down. Hokies over the Noles in the second round. Then we have the 2:30 p.m. tip of the 5th-seeded Wake Forest Demon Deacons taking on the 12th-seeded Notre Dame Fighting Irish. The Deacs have had a weird last 5, dude. They got a win against Duke, a loss at Notre Dame, a loss at Virginia Tech, a loss against Georgia Tech, and then a win against Clemson to close out the regular season. Now, Marcus Burton went absolutely stinking ham in that game where the Irish beat the Wake Forest Demon Deacons. He scored 31, and he was absolutely unguardable. But Wake's leading scorer, Hunter Salas, was held to 7 points on 2 for 11 shooting that night. It doesn't happen again, bro. And the luck of the Irish runs out early. I'll take the Deacs to advance to take on the Pitt Panthers in the quarterfinals. And then we have the 7 p.m. game, 7th-seeded Syracuse Orange taking on the 10th-seeded NC State Wolfsack. Now, Syracuse has won both meetings against the Wolfsack, and I think, once again, Judah Mintz and J.J. Starling are too much. We'll see some good guard play in this one, but the issue is that DJ Horn is only one man. Mintz and Starling proved to be too much, and the Qs advance to the quarterfinal round to take on the Dukies. So I'll take Syracuse over the NC State Wolfpack, and once again, they have a crappy season. Good for them. And the last game of the night will be the 6th-seeded Clemson Tigers taking on the 14th-seeded Miami Hurricanes at 9 p.m. Clemson and Miami split their basketball games this season, and oddly enough, both of them were won by double digits. So one won by double digits on their floor, and then they go to the other person's place, and they win by double digits. So that's quite the spectrum. It's probably not the right word, but that's what we're going with right now at 6 in the morning. So Clemson has won 7 of the last 10 compared to Miami dropping 9 straight. And then prior to that first round win against BC. So the question is, will the Canes be reinvigorated enough during the tournament to make this a run against the Clemson Tigers? And Clemson has some good wins lately, man. They've beaten Carolina, Syracuse, and Pitt. PJ Hall and Chase Hunter proved to be too much. and the Tigers win a close one against the Canes. And that moves us to the quarterfinal round, baby. And just a little slight caveat, a little deviation. Just because I pick a team right now doesn't mean I don't reserve the right when I do the now my bracket will be locked in. That's not what I'm saying. My bracket's locked in. But, just based off of feeling and things of that nature, when I do the North Carolina reaction or the preview videos, I don't know. It could be subject to change. But my bracket will be locked in. No cheating over here, okay? So we'll start with a noon tip as the number 1 North Carolina Tar Heels take on the 8th-seeded Virginia Tech Hokies on ESPN. Now, the Heels and Hokies met only one time in the regular season, and that resulted in a 96-81 victory by the Heels. It's funny that I picked the Heels to beat the Noles, but I think the Hokies are a more favorable matchup for the Heels. They don't quite possess the athleticism and length as that Florida State team does. And there's not a whole lot down low for Virginia Tech matching up with Mondo. Poteet is a load. He's a big guy. And he did score 15 in Carolina's one matchup with him. But he didn't really stay on the floor long enough. And I think these teams have similar makeups. But UNC is the deeper, more experienced, more athletic team. And the Heels advance to the semifinals in a double-digit win. And then next we have the 4th-seeded Pitt Panthers taking on the 5th-seeded Wake Forest Demon Deacons at 2:30. Pitt beat Wake Forest by 5 at home, and then they lost by stinking 33 about 3 weeks ago to Wake Forest. What in the world, guys? Win by 5, lose by 33. But since that game, Pitt's 4-5 with the lone loss of being a 7-point L at Clemson. So not a bad loss, right? Pitt is stinking tough. But I'm going to go with my gut on this one. Salas and the Deeks basically played a game for seeding when they beat the Clemson Tigers recently. Salas is a scorer, and I like the rest of their starting 5 with Miller, Hildreth, Carr, and Reed the third. I'm going to take the Deeks with the slight upset here, advancing to the semifinal round against the Heels. So give me the 5th-seeded Wake Forest Demon Deacons to upset the 4th-seeded Pitt Panthers. And then we have the 2-seeded Dukies taking on the 7th-seeded Syracuse Orange, who lost to Duke back in their first game in 2024 by 20 points. Now, Syracuse is playing much better basketball, but the Devils are going to be too much for them. Tripopowski and McCain, they're going to be too much for Syracuse to work through, and Duke is going to advance to the semifinal round. And then in the last game of the night, you have the 3rd-seeded Virginia Hoos taking on the 6th-seeded Clemson Tigers at 9 p.m. Virginia and Clemson played to a 66-65 Virginia win over the Tigers back in early February. Jacob Groves scored 17 for the Hoos, while P.J. Hall dropped 19 in the loss. Here's the thing that worries me about the Virginia Cavaliers, though. Their inconsistency at the tail end of the season. They scored 72 against Georgia Tech, 48 against Duke, 72 against BC, 44 against Carolina, 41 against Virginia Tech, and 49 against Wake Forest. Yikes. I do not have confidence in this team scoring the basketball, and therefore, I'm going to take the Tigers in this one ugly. But we have another upset, and the Tigers advance to take on the Devils in this semifinal matchup. So we got a 1-5, 2, and 6, right? 1-5, 2, and 6. And the first game of the semifinals will be the 1-seeded North Carolina Tar Heels taking on the 5th-seeded Wake Forest Demon Deacons at 7 p.m. on ESPN. Now, North Carolina hosted the Deacs back in late January, and they took home a 21-point W in their only meeting of the year. R.J. Davis led all scorers with 36. Harrison Ingram added 10 and 14 to go along with 14 points and 3 assists from Elliot Cadeau. Salas scored 18, but they came on late as the Heels held the Deacs to 35.6% from the field and 15% from three. I don't think Carolina gets that done again, but they do come out on top in a fairly convincing fashion to advance to the ACC championship game, baby. I mean, Carolina's just too talented, right? They're more talented than Wake Forest. It's not going to be quite the blowout, but they get the job done. And then the last game of the night will pit the 2-seeded Duke Blue Devils against the 6-seeded Clemson Tigers. Now, Duke and Clemson played only once this year, which was a 72-71 Duke victory, where McCain had to play hero ball as time was running out by sinking 2 free throws on a controversial foul with 1 second left. I actually think that this is going to be maybe the best basketball game of the tournament to this point. And I would actually not be surprised if the Clemson Tigers win this basketball game. But I'm pretending that I'm putting money on this thing, and I just have a strong feeling that the Devils' destiny is to make it to the ACC championship game for round 3 of Carolina-Duke. Duke advances in a thriller, and they take on their daddy in D.C., and that leads us to the granddaddy of them all. The 1-seeded North Carolina Tar Heels will take on the 2nd-seeded Duke Blue Devils for all the marbles, as they say. And let's just cut to the chase. We already know that both of these teams are going to battle, and Duke would love nothing more than to erase those 2 regular season defeats. But the Heels, they're just the better team, right? And once again, they're the better defensive team, and that is the difference. Give me the Heels to win their 19th ACC tournament title and their first since 2016, which is also the last year that Carolina won both the regular season and tournament titles on their way to the national championship game, which they should have won. So if the Heels can get that done, hey, your boys are sitting in really good company. So let me know what you think about my picks, North Carolina and ACC fans. Let me know what you like and what you don't like in my bracket. And don't forget to lock in your own bracket in the comment section before the first game at noon on Tuesday, March 12th, for a chance to get some wristbands and something else, a little gift, man, a little gift. So I'll close the chat before the game so that we can ensure that we only have qualified entries. I don't know who isn't excited for tournament time, bro. It's the first part of March Madness coming right at you, bro. Let's go stinking Heels. Not going to be able to watch any of the first round games live, but I do plan on live streaming the Virginia Tech Florida State game at noon on Wednesday, man. So if you can, make sure you come and hang out. We'll scout the enemy. We'll have a good time. Looking forward to it, man. I always look forward to the ACC tournament, man. So let's go stinking Heels, baby, and we'll catch you on the next one, Tar Heel Nation.